Imagine a stage, a microphone, and one person armed with nothing but wit, observations, and the power to make hundreds of strangers laugh simultaneously.
What's your name?
Suck dick.
Suck dick?
This is stand-up comedy, an art form that's more than just jokes. It's a mirror reflecting our society, our fears, our absurdities, and our shared human experience. Let's first take a look at the deep roots of stand-up or pre-modern comedy. Believe it or not, stand-up comedy has roots that stretch back thousands of years. In ancient Greece, comic performers would use satire and humor to critique social and political issues during festivals. Roman comedians would perform in amphitheaters, using observational humor and character-based comedy that feels surprisingly modern. Then came vaudeville, the crucible of modern comedy. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw the rise of vaudeville, variety shows that became the breeding ground for comedic talent. Performers like Will Rogers, who seamlessly blended humor with social commentary, began to shape what would eventually become stand-up comedy. These early comedians were storytellers, social critics, and entertainers rolled into one. The birth of modern stand-up was the 1950s, when a comedy revolution occurred. The 1950s marked a seismic shift in comedy. Clubs in New York City, particularly in Greenwich Village, became revolutionary spaces where comedians could experiment with more personal, provocative material. This was the era when comedy moved from simple joke-telling to a more intimate, confessional art form. Early innovators like Lenny Bruce broke ground by challenging social norms. Bruce wasn't just a comedian, he was a social revolutionary who used humor to challenge censorship, expose hypocrisy, and push the boundaries of free speech. He paid a heavy price, being arrested multiple times, but he paved the way for future comedians to speak truth to power. Enter the golden age of comedy. The comedy boom of the 1980s saw an explosion of comedy clubs across America. Suddenly, stand-up wasn't just entertainment, it was a cultural phenomenon. Comedy specials became must-watch television, and comedians became household names. Defining comedic voices paved the way for more to come. Richard Pryor entered the scene with his radical honesty that people loved. Pryor completely transformed stand-up comedy with his brutally honest, raw approach. He spoke about race, poverty, addiction, and personal struggles in a way no comedian had before. Pryor didn't just tell jokes, he revealed uncomfortable truths about American society, using humor as a scalpel to dissect racial tensions and personal pain. Eddie Murphy was another early superstar comedian. Murphy represented a new breed of comedian, a global superstar who could seamlessly transition between stand-up, movies, and television. His comedy specials, like Raw and Delirious, became cultural touchstones, influencing an entire generation of comedians. With so many early legendary comedians, it's only necessary to take a fuller deep dive into some of everyone's favorites, such as George Carlin, the philosophical comedian. George Carlin was more than a comedian. He was a modern philosopher who used humor as his primary language. His evolution from a clean-cut performer to a razor-sharp social critic is a testament to comedy's power of transformation. His career highlights include challenging language and societal norms, creating iconic comedy specials that were part comedy, part social critique, and influencing generations of comedians to use humor as a tool for intellectual discourse. Then Jerry Seinfeld hit the scene and was a complete master of observation. Seinfeld elevated the art of observational comedy to new heights. His ability to find humor in the most mundane aspects of daily life revolutionized comedy. His career milestones include transforming stand-up into an art of finding humor in everyday experiences, creating Seinfeld, one of the most successful sitcoms in television history, and maintaining a consistent and brilliant stand-up career for decades. Chris Rock hit the scene as a fearless social commentary comedian. Rock brought a new level of raw honesty and social critique to stand-up. His performances are electric explorations of race, politics, relationships, and social dynamics. His breakthrough moments include groundbreaking HBO specials that tackled complex social issues, influential comedy that bridges entertainment and social discourse, and a successful crossover into film, hosting, and global entertainment. Kevin Hart came about as the modern comedy entrepreneur. Hart represents the new model of comedian as a global brand. His high-energy performances and relatable storytelling have redefined comedy for the 21st century. His rise to global stardom includes building a massive following from small clubs to international arenas, creating a multimedia empire beyond stand-up, and demonstrating the global appeal of personal, energetic comedy. Additional influential voices in stand-up comedy are definitely worth mentioning. Dave Chappelle was actually a controversial genius. Chappelle has consistently pushed comedy's boundaries, using his platform to explore complex social issues while maintaining an unparalleled comedic touch. Not to be forgotten is Ellen DeGeneres, and she definitely broke major barriers. Ellen transformed stand-up by bringing a gentle, observational style that appealed to broad audiences and helped normalize LGBTQ+ representation in comedy. Ali Wong came onto the scene and brought a new generation of comedy. Wong represents a new wave of comedians who bring diverse perspectives, challenging traditional comedy narratives about gender, family, and career. The technological revolution in comedy is important to note. Streaming and global reach transformed the art of comedy and stand-up. Platforms like Netflix, YouTube, and specialized comedy channels have democratized comedy. Comedians can now reach global audiences without traditional gatekeepers. Social media and short-form comedy has allowed more people to not only put their comedy out there, but has also made comedy more accessible to more people. The rise of TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube has created new formats for comedic expression, allowing comedians to reach audiences in bite-sized, viral moments. Emerging trends and challenges in comedy are far-reaching for 2025 and beyond. Diversity and representation are important in today's social climate, and comedians realize this. The comedy world is increasingly recognizing and celebrating diverse voices. Comedians from various backgrounds are bringing fresh perspectives and challenging traditional comedy narratives. The cancel culture debate is where things get tricky. Modern comedians navigate a complex landscape of social sensitivity and free expression, leading to ongoing debates about the limits of comedy, not to mention the link between mental health and comedy. There's growing recognition of comedy as a form of emotional processing, with many comedians openly discussing mental health, trauma, and personal struggles. The future of stand-up comedy is dynamic. Virtual and hybrid performances are becoming more popular, making comedy even more accessible. When things shut down in 2020, it accelerated the development of virtual comedy shows, creating new ways for comedians to connect with audiences. Global and multilingual comedy is also growing. As digital platforms break down geographical barriers, we're seeing the rise of international comedy scenes and multilingual comedic talents. Technological innovations are also aiding the development of comedy. Emerging technologies like AI and virtual reality might create entirely new formats for comedic expression, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on in the future. Stand-up comedy is a living, breathing art form that continues to evolve. It's a powerful medium that does more than make us laugh. It helps us understand ourselves, our society, and our shared human experience. From the smoky clubs of the 1950s to today's global digital stages, comedy remains a critical tool for social commentary, emotional release, and human connection. Remember, behind every great joke is a profound truth waiting to be discovered. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your favorite comedian in the comments below.